You just met someone. 30 seconds ago, they told you their name, you heard it, you nodded. You might have even repeated it back. And it's already gone. Not fading, not almost there, gone. Like it was never said. And now you're standing here, mid-conversation, looking directly at this person, smiling at exactly the right moments, saying exactly the right things, and internally running a quiet emergency. What is their name? What is their name? What is their name? You've been in that moment more times than you'd like to admit. And every time you walked away thinking the same thing. Why do I keep doing this? Why can I remember a song I heard once in 2009, but not the name of someone I met 30 seconds ago? Here's what nobody ever told you. That gap, that specific slightly embarrassing gap, is not a memory problem. It is a window into something much more specific about how your mind actually works. And once you understand what it's showing you, you will never think about it the same way again. Most people assume forgetting names means one of two things. You weren't paying attention, or you just have a bad memory. Both explanations feel plausible. Both explanations are mostly wrong, because the brain is not a recording device. It doesn't capture everything equally. It doesn't store what arrives. It stores what it decides matters, and those two things, what arrives and what matters, are not the same list. A name is one of the most abstract pieces of information the human brain is ever asked to hold. It carries no emotional weight on its own, no survival relevance, no pattern the brain can hook it to. It is just a sound attached to a stranger, delivered once, in the middle of a moment, where the brain is already doing 6 other things. The fact that it disappears is not the mystery. The mystery is why some names stay and others vanish, and what the difference between those two outcomes tells you about what was actually happening inside you in that moment. Tonight, 5 answers. Each one more specific than the last. Each one closer to the thing you've been trying to explain about yourself for years. Every second, your brain receives approximately 11 million bits of information from your eyes, your ears, your skin, your body, the environment around you. The amount it consciously processes is roughly 40 out of 11 million. Everything else gets cut. Not randomly, by a system that has been running for hundreds of thousands of years and has very specific ideas about what deserves your attention. Threat, movement, emotion, faces, pattern recognition. These are the things the filter lets through. These are the things that kept your ancestors alive in environments that punished inattention. A name does not make that list. A name is an arbitrary label. It tells the brain nothing. Nothing about whether this person is safe. Nothing about what they want. Nothing about what this interaction requires. And it arrives at the worst possible moment. The first 3 seconds of meeting someone are the most cognitively expensive seconds of any social interaction. The brain is running simultaneous assessments, body language analysis, facial threat evaluation, social hierarchy calculation, voice tone processing, your own physical self-management. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, a name arrives, once, briefly, without any of the signals the filter uses to decide something is worth keeping. So it doesn't keep it, not because you weren't paying attention, because your attention was already fully allocated to things the system considered more urgent. The name wasn't forgotten. It was outcompeted by a brain that was working exactly as designed. There is a version of this that goes deeper than filtering, and it's the one that explains why some people forget names far more consistently than others. When you meet someone, what is your mind actually doing? For most people who struggle with names, the honest answer is this. In the moment the name is being said, part of the mind is not out there, it is in here, running. How am I coming across right now? Is my voice doing that thing? What do I do with my hands? Am I making the right amount of eye contact? Too much? Not enough? What am I going to say when they stop talking? Did that come out wrong? Are they comfortable? Am I comfortable? This is not distraction in the ordinary sense. This is self-monitoring, a continuous internal process that certain minds run automatically in any social situation that carries even a small amount of uncertainty. And self-monitoring is expensive. It consumes cognitive bandwidth, real, measurable, limited bandwidth that is not available for anything else. While it's running, including encoding a name, the research is consistent on this. People with higher social anxiety. People who process self-presentation more carefully. People who are more aware of how they're being perceived forget names at significantly higher rates than people who move through social situations more lightly, not because they care less, because they are carrying more in the exact moment. When the name arrives, you weren't absent, you were overwhelmed by the volume of your own internal experience. In a moment that looked from the outside perfectly calm, think about a name you have never forgotten. Someone from years ago, maybe decades, someone you might have only met once. You still know their name, without trying, without ever having practiced it, without flashcards or repetition or any technique at all. Why? Because something happened in that interaction that doesn't happen in most interactions. An emotion arrived, strong enough, unexpected enough, real enough to trigger the brain's tagging system. Emotion is not just how we feel about experiences. It is the brain's primary mechanism for deciding which experiences to keep. The amygdala, the brain's emotional processing center, directly influences the hippocampus, the region responsible for memory formation. When emotion is present, the signal to encode strengthens. The memory forms faster, encodes deeper, retrieves more reliably. This is why you remember the name of someone who made you feel seen, who said something that landed in a place most people don't reach, who surprised you, who moved you, who made you uncomfortable in a way that was interesting. And why you don't remember the name of someone the interaction passed through you, like light through glass. Nothing absorbed, nothing changed. The forgetting is not a judgment on the person. It is a measurement of how much emotional signal the encounter actually produced. Which raises an uncomfortable question. Not about your memory, about your interactions. How many of them are producing enough signal to be worth keeping? Here is the part that is most uncomfortable to sit with. In most conversations, you are not fully present. Not because you're rude, not because you don't care, because the brain doesn't process information passively, it processes it predictively. While someone is still speaking, your brain is already ahead of them, already predicting what comes next, already forming a response, already pulling associations from memory, already running the social calculation of what this moment requires. You are not listening to them. You are listening to your model of them, your prediction of what they're saying, updated in real time, but always running slightly ahead of the actual words. Neuroscientists call this predictive processing, and it is not a flaw. It is how the brain manages the speed of real-time conversation, but it has a cost. When you're running predictions, you're not encoding. When you're formulating responses, you're not absorbing. When you're managing the social calculation of the interaction, you're operating on a model, not on the actual person in front of you. And the name delivered once, in the first seconds before the model was fully formed, before the prediction system had enough data, never got properly encoded. You heard it. The sound reached your ears, was processed as language, registered as information. But hearing is not encoding. And encoding is not storage, and storage is not retrieval. 4 separate processes, any one of which can fail quietly without you noticing until the moment you need the name, and it isn't there. Put everything together. The filtering system that deprioritized the name, the self-monitoring that consumed the bandwidth, the emotional signal that wasn't strong enough to trigger encoding, the predictive processing that was running ahead of the moment. What does all of that add up to? Not carelessness, not rudeness, not a broken memory, a mind that is carrying a lot. Cognitive overload doesn't always look dramatic. It doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it looks like a perfectly normal conversation, where you smiled at all the right moments, said all the right things, and came away with almost nothing retained. The name is just the most visible loss, the most socially awkward one, the one that gets noticed, but it is pointing at something larger, at a mind that is consistently running at high capacity, that is processing more than it lets on, that is managing more variables than most people realize, in situations that look simple from the outside. And here is the thing worth saying directly. Forgetting a name is not the same as not caring about a person. These are not the same variable. They are not even related variables. Some of the most attentive, caring, emotionally present people forget names within minutes because their attention operates differently. It goes to expression, to feeling, to what someone is communicating. Underneath the words, the name is a label. The person underneath it is what certain minds actually reach for. That is not an excuse, but it is an accurate description of how a specific kind of mind moves through the world. The next time it happens, and it will, you'll be in that moment again, the gap. The name that isn't there, the quiet internal scramble that nobody else can see, and you'll probably feel the familiar version of it. The slight embarrassment, the reflexive self-criticism. Why can't I just remember? But maybe something will be different now. Maybe instead of what is wrong with me, something quieter arrives. My brain was full. It was managing more than it looked like from the outside. The name didn't make it through. Not because that person didn't matter, but because mattering and encoding are two completely separate things. You are not broken. You are not careless. You are not the person who never pays attention. You are a mind doing an enormous amount of invisible work in every room you enter, and sometimes the name is simply what gets left behind, while everything else got carried.